very, very thrilled to hand this over to one of Broadleaf's own. She is a board member. She is the vice chair of this year's conference, and she is also an author, Jessica Nettles. And Jessica normally often runs the chat for us. Tonight, she's going to run this program. And in your chat, you're going to see Benji popping up, dropping links and everything on you. So, all right, Jessica, have a great program.
Thanks a lot. Hi, everybody. Glad you guys could make it out tonight. I'm going to be your moderator for this evening. So what I'm going to do is basically kick out some questions to Bobby and John concerning independent publishing. I figure most of the conversation is going to be carried by them. I want to point out that there's a Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. Benji's going to be pestering you about this all the way through. Make sure that if you've got questions for Bobby or for John, put them in the Q&A. We'll try to get to them probably towards the end of the program. So be filling that up with questions so they have a lot to answer, and they're going to have a lot to talk about anyway. So let me introduce our guests for tonight. Tonight we have John G. Hartness and Bobby Nash, and I'm going to talk just a little bit about both of them. First, we have John Hartness, who is, according to his bio on his author website, a teller of tales, a righter of wrongs, and a defender of ladies' virtues. I can vouch for him on all of these points. He is also the author of the Black Knight Chronicles, Quincy Harker, Demon Hunter, and Bubba the Monster Hunter series, and a cast member of the podcast Authors and Dragons, where authors play Dungeons and Dragons badly and get away with it. He is also the head of Falstaff Books, which is now in its 5th year, producing some of the best novels and novellas in fantasy, sci-fi, urban fantasy, and romance under the Falstaff Crush label. He's also my publisher, so I may be a little biased. And it is so great to have you with us, John.
Thanks, Jess. It's great to be here. And like I had said when we first did the intro, it's always good to hang out with my birthday buddy, Bobby. Bobby Nash and I are good friends, and we do share a birthday. So it's always great to hang out with y'all.
Very cool.
It's a scary time in the South on that day. It's fireworks. It's
There's no Mountain Dew to be found.
All right. We also have with us Bobby Nash, John's birthday buddy. Bobby writes comic books, novels, novellas, short stories, and even screenplays. I'm kind of blown away by that. Bobby's 2020 novel, Night Vale: Crisis at the Crossroads of Infinity, try to say that 5 times fast, was named Best Pulp Novel at the Pulp Factory Awards, which is kind of cool. The Sangria Summit Society also awarded his novel Snowfalls and his Abraham Snow series the New Pulp Fiction Award in 2020, which is really, really cool. These books and others have been published through his own publishing house, Ben Books. He's also an actor that you've probably seen in the background of some of your favorite television series and movies. Really thought it was cool, but never knew his name. So welcome, Bobby.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank
it's
you.
Like,
yes.
It's like hometown day today.
Yeah, yeah, the awards thing was really cool. That was especially the Sangria Society one, because I had never even heard of the award until I won it.
That's great.
Yeah, didn't even know I was nominated.
Can we talk for a minute about the fact that there's an entire society dedicated to sangria?
Yeah.
And why am I not a member of this?
I don't know. I'll put you in touch with people.
Please do, because that's what got me through college.
They do love writers.
And I love booze. So.
And I love sangria, so why not? That's very cool. So tonight we're here to talk about independent publishing, which is something I only marginally had any idea about until I ran into John, 5 years ago now? And I went up to his table. Yeah. And I went up to his table because I wanted to chat him up about a book I was writing, and he looked like kind of a cool guy. And so I did it. So I think as we get started, we need to maybe get a definition, or the best definition we can get of what independent publishing is. So that's my first question.
So there's a lot of different definitions, and there's a lot of ways to define it. In its broadest sense, independent publishing is any publishing that is not done by a major New York house. At this point, there are still 5, because the last merger, I think, hasn't gone through, 5 major publishers, and almost everything in the bookstores, unless it's some indie bookstore, almost everything on the bookstore shelves is produced by an imprint of one of those 5. And I'm not going to try to remember the parent company's names because I screw it up. But then there's a lot of us out there who aren't financed by multinational conglomerates. There are publishers that are run on a shoestring, all the way up to publishers that make books that routinely win awards and routinely hit the New York Times bestseller lists. A lot of the books that are nominated for the Man Booker Prize are frequently produced by independent literary publishers because they're niche books. A lot of the stuff that you see at conventions, if you attend science fiction and fantasy conventions, there are a lot of independent presses and indie published books. There's kind of a DIY mentality to it. And it also incorporates people who are only publishing their own work. So you can be an independent publisher and only publish your own work, or you can be an independent publisher and publish 50 plus people's work.
Gee, I wonder who you're talking about.
I swear when we started, it was going to be a little press. We were going to do maybe a dozen books a year. That was the plan.
But man, looking at everything that's happened in that 5 years since you started Falstaff, even you, did you see it doing what it's done?
God, no.
Because I mean the trajectory of Falstaff books. Because I mean, I remember there at the beginning, it was just like, I'm going to do this so I can publish some of my books, you know?
Yeah.
And it, you know,
I mean, literally, I came up to you at a comic book convention and said, "Do you have any stuff laying around that the rights are reverted to?" I'm being polite.
I know, yeah.
That's the PG version. But yeah, I just went up to my friends and said, "Hey, what do you got?"
Yeah.
Now it helps that after being on the convention circuit for nearly a decade at that point, I have a lot of really talented and really skilled friends. And
yeah.
But
yeah,
no.
and that's a great, but you're right, that's a great way to start it. With Ben Books, you know, I started Ben Books just to publish my stuff that I didn't have a home for elsewhere. But this year I've had people doing short stories with some of my characters.
Which reminds me,
but first thing I did,
late.
Yeah, but the first thing I did was reached out to friends people I knew would finish the stories, would get them done, and people that are out there promoting.
Well, and it's a complaint that I sometimes hear from writers who want to work with us. Hey, you only publish your friends. To which I respond with, look at who my friends are. I'm not the only person publishing my friends, by the way.
Yeah.
My friends get published by Penguin and Tor and plenty of other people. So
but there's also there's a thing of it too. I mean, this is not just an indie publishing thing. I mean, even with the big guys, authors are having to do this now. You are like your own machine here. You are handling the promotion. Even if you're working with a publisher who's handling production and cover, your job is to sell that book.
Yes.
No matter what you're doing. And so there's a lot of things when you're working with publishers that publishers look for, whether they're indie or big publishers. They're looking for one, you know, will you complete the project? Because how many people have started and just stopped and never finished? That happens. Yeah. So knowing that's a step forward. If they know you can do it, they know you're going to get out there and promote the book, talk up the book, do things like this, go to conventions, go to stores, go to all that stuff, you know. And then, you know, talent's in there too. You've got to be able to tell a good story, but
yes,
you can't get by on just telling good stories. The other you have to do the other stuff. It's not like the old days where the publisher took care of all that. It's just the entire industry has changed.
And
I
there's
think, yeah.
so much coming out.
Mhm.
No publisher. We laid out production calendars this week, and we have an open week
Wow.
in November of 2022.
I was going to say that won't stay open long.
Yeah, that's the next time. That's the next week that we don't have a book coming out. And we're a very small press. I mean, you guys are looking at my office.
Hell, you're
This is
looking at the staff of Ben Books.
I do have more staff than that. But yeah, there's so much coming out. I mean, I just saw Benji put it up in chat. Bobby's book is 99 cents this week.
Mhm.
If I had not a book coming out every week, I could have done a lot more promotion to push that. Fortunately, Bobby has been doing that work, and here we are. Fortunate it happened to fall during this time, which is fortunate. But yeah, we can't do as much as we would like to.
Mhm.
And we
Well-
also can't teach people how to write books.
Yeah.
I started off self-publishing and had a successful series called the Black Knight Chronicles. And then I sold that series to a press out of Memphis called Bellbridge Books. They're a mid-sized publisher, do some great stuff. The reason I sold that series to a press was because I wanted to learn how to make books and how to publish books. And I wanted to learn from the editor who I was going to be working with and be a better writer. I am. It worked. I sucked her dry of all kinds of information. But God, I forget where I was going with this.
You were learning stuff.
I was learning stuff, and I wanted to work with Bellbridge because they had a great reputation, but I still had to learn on my own before I got to them how to write a book. And what I found out later on talking with Deb Dixon, the publisher, she takes on about one writer a year that is somebody that can tell a story, but doesn't really know how to build a book yet. And that's her project writer for the year. So I stole that idea and I kind of do the same thing now. I take very few people on. I handle a fair chunk of our editorial, but usually it's the people who have written a lot of stuff, like Chris Jackson, Stuart Jaffe, Dan Jolly. I'm their editor. I take their stuff because it don't take as much work. They rock. But every once in a while, I'll take an author who has not published a novel before. Emily Leverett and Sarah Adams with Changeling's Fall, Jess with Children of Menlo Park. These are people who have good books. The core of them is good, but it's going to take some work to get a book out of it. With Changeling's Fall, they had shopped that book for 4 years. And it finally took me getting into editorial to find out why nobody bought it. Because the main character wasn't likable until a third of the way through the book. We put in a scene at the beginning where she's likable, and then all of a sudden it's a book. When we started working on Children of Menlo Park, the big question I asked Jess was, whose book is this? And then when we figured out the answer to that, we had a book.
Right. And
that's the benefit of working with an independent publisher. You're never getting that out of New York.
Right.
That ain't happening.
I think too with indie publishers, there are more opportunities to take chances and to experiment, to try things that might be a little odd or formatting wise that are a good experiment. That
short story collections by someone other than Stephen King.
Yeah, there are different ways of doing things that you can experiment and try that might be a lot more difficult at one of the big five because they kind of have their formula.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot of of things like that that you can do as an indie to just experiment or to try things. And
And they answer to so many people.
Mhm.
The people that choose the book aren't the people that ultimately say yes to the book. At Falstaff and at Ben Books, Chubby Guy's got the final say. We're it. We are. We're where the buck stops because we're where the buck starts. My editors, because I do have a few more people, my editors have a lot of leeway. And if one of them comes to me and says, I want to buy this book or this series, okay, we're going to buy that series. But we were just open for slush, for unsolicited submissions in February of this month. We won't be open again until at least 2023, if we're ever open again. We got over 300 submissions, and I don't know how many I don't know if we're going to take 5.
Wow.
It's just hard.
Mhm.
There's a lot out there.
Yeah, and it's not always because it's not all good. I mean, that's the thing. Sometimes you get stuff it's good, but it's just like, I can only hold this much. My cup only holds so much.
And people don't want to wait 3 years.
Yeah.
Because if I buy a book right now, I'm buying for late 23 right now. And if the book needs, and if it's a new author that's going to need work, it might be 2024.
Right.
Because I don't know how many passes of editorial it's going to be. And I assume that authors that are submitting to me have a day job. So it's going to take a little longer to get those edits back.
Right. So if you're talking to these new authors and, like for me, I know when I came to you, I knew about this much, right? And I learned that I actually knew even less. For a new author, what kind of thing do they need to know? What kind of things do they need to know going into working with an indie publisher? What are the benefits for them? What do they need to know to make that happen?
Okay, first, because I run into this a lot in multi-genre crowds. First and foremost, you don't pay the publisher. If your publisher starts talking about financial partnerships and you investing in the book, walk away. That they are predatory. If they make money off of something other than selling the books they produce, then they're going to focus on doing the things that make money, because it's easier to make money fleecing authors than it is selling books.
Mm-hmm.
Same for agents.
Yes.
If agents do this, yeah.
Reading fees are bullshit. I waited until we were like a ways into this before so that YouTube won't crush you on
Proud of you.
search results.
I was wondering how long it was going to take.
I was watching the clock, but seriously, I've seen more and more this hybrid publisher.
Yeah.
That's Vanity Press with the serial number filed off. Don't do it. You don't pay to have your book published. Falstaff Books makes money selling books. We do not make money off of our authors. Producing books costs money. That's the gamble I take. That's why I get a big cut of the money when the book sells. It's also important to research the press that you're thinking of working with. Go on their website, see if they have a list of authors, or look at their we don't actually, but we have a page with a couple hundred book covers on there that we've published. You're smart people. You can find the author names. Contact those authors. Say, hey, how is it to work with Hartness? How is it to work with Bobby?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of people won't pay you.
Yeah. That's what I did when I started talking to you. I went to Bobby and said, hey, I know you work for this dude. Is he really crackers, or is he?
Yes.
Yes.
and he's like, well, he is crackers, but he's also good to work with. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay. And that kind of helped me a lot.
We
I-
have over a dozen titles in our catalog that I call our rescues that we have picked up after authors demanded their rights be reverted because their original publisher didn't pay them ever or stopped paying them. So there's a lot of unethical douchebags in this business too.
Hey, that's kind of the origin story of Ben books too. I got these rights back. What do I do with them? So yeah, but no, he's absolutely right. Research is key, because if you want to write westerns, submitting to a fantasy publisher is probably not going to
unless they're weird westerns.
Unless
because
they're
I
weird
am a
westerns.
sucker for weird westerns.
But if you're but see that could fall into the fantasy category. But if you're writing
that's what I
straight
keep
up
telling
western,
the rest of my editors.
or if you're writing detective fiction, sending it to a romance publisher, unless it's a romantic, police.
Yeah,
pursuit.
probably not going to get you there.
Yeah, so know who you're aiming for, and because if you think I'm going to be the one that changes their mind about what they publish, you're just in for heartache. It's just not going to happen.
I mean, look, I'm not even going to read it. If I read your cover letter and it says, this is a heartwarming series of short stories this is a heartwarming memoir of short stories about me and my dog in Brooklyn, I may not even respond because you're so far outside of our submission guidelines. Read the guidelines is one thing that's important to know. It is important. I mean, Jess, what you did is you went to a science fiction and fantasy convention wanting to write and publish science fiction and fantasy. So you walked around the dealer room, you looked at the tables, you were taking a look at everything, and you saw some schmuck who looked like he would talk. And I think you were there for like an hour. We talked a lot.
Yeah, we did. And I really didn't know how long I was there. I was having a good time. And
Same with me.
Yeah, and that's something that I think a lot of young authors don't think to do is go where you know that you're going to fit in.
I know almost every author in our stable personally, and I knew almost all of them personally before I published them. I don't buy books. I buy authors. And I'm not saying that because the whole Falstaff Books is a family, I don't want my people to ever write for anybody. Not that crap. But I want to work with people who I like because it's going to be a multi-year relationship.
Yeah, because you're going in assuming it's not a one book deal. You're assuming that this author is going to have more than one book.
Science fiction and fantasy in particular live and die by the series.
Yeah.
I think one of my questions as soon as I was done with the first round of edits on Menlo was, hey, so what's the next book going to be?
Right. And I think we had a discussion. I haven't started it yet, but I know where we're going. It's going to be fun. It's going to be Savannah. And I think there's going to be a serial killer.
There should always be a serial killer.
Always.
Well, it's interesting because I found a serial killer in the history of Savannah that nobody talks about. That hits right about the same time period. Plus, it gets me to introduce Don the Knife.
And you can go to Savannah and write off all the trips.
Well, yeah, and I can go hang out with my cousins because,
That's why Teresa Glover pitched the Caitlin Kelly series to me, because she loved going to New Orleans and wanted a way to write those trips off.
Yeah,
I was like,
I'll probably spend some time in Tybee for this.
Yeah. But I want to work with people I like. And most small presses are the same way because we know that it's going to be a direct relationship. With New York, your agent talks to the editor, who then the editor talks to marketing and the publisher. You as the writer may never meet the publisher. If you're working with Ben Books, there ain't nobody to meet but Bobby. We do have a few more people. You can. I don't think we've published anybody that I haven't communicated with at all. but you can publish with Falstaff without dealing with me, except for contracts. But it's going to be rare. It's the exception rather than the rule.
Mhm. And I think that plays out too when you see, especially with Falstaff, because there's more of you, you know, at a convention or an event, that table is full of people, and you know, there's a lot of camaraderie between all the people at the table that I think draws people to the table.
Yeah, it is. It's a calculated thing.
Mhm.
It's why we have so many t-shirts. That's a tpublic.com/something. I don't remember.
They're really
But-
nice t-shirts.
Benji's
too.
like,
I
gee,
have a couple.
thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. If Benji doesn't hate me yet, give me time. We're not close to 8 o'clock yet.
Throwing them out there. Yeah.
But
Uh,
yeah. And
So, you know, we talked about how I met you at a convention, right?
Mhm.
And I actually met Bobby that way too.
Mhm.
I think I met Bobby
So did I.
actually through
That's how
Daryl.
we, yeah, that's how we
Yeah.
met as well. Yeah, through
well,
Yeah.
Bobby and I have shared trauma. There was a convention in Louisville, Kentucky.
Oh yeah.
It was
Oh,
the
God.
hottest. That wasn't where we met, but that's where
Yeah.
we became friends. That's where we
Yeah.
became brothers.
Yeah, actually, that's where we met. And who's Andrea? She's in
Yeah.
the chat there too. She was
It's
there.
where we met Andy.
Yeah.
It's where so many people. It's where I met Sean
Ooh.
Taylor. It's where I met Alan Gilbreth, who I published several books with. It was the hottest summer for like 100 years. And it was the July 4th weekend. And this was one of those old style, I don't know, Days Inn style hotels where it used to have doors on the outside, but they dropped a terrarium over the hotel, like in Under the Dome. So the entire hotel was a Florida room.
With a heated pool in it.
And with the air conditioners for your room blowing out
The
into the
heat.
Florida room
Yeah.
hallway. It's Friday.
Yeah.
And there's a writers meetup. So we're all in there and we're thinking, where's the booze? There's no booze. Well, crap. All right, well, I guess we'll hang out anyway. And this adorable little young lady comes in from the front desk and she says, I'm sorry, y'all, but the heat air conditioner for this room's putting too much of a load on our system and I'm gonna have to turn it off. And she walks over and flips off the air conditioning. And we all kind of look at each other and it's still reasonable. But then it starts to get warm and it gets time to end and it's real warm. And then it's miserable. And then we realize that the air is off everywhere except in the guest rooms. And then there's no one left in this room except for me and this middle-aged lady and a man who I assume is her husband. Well, I'm waiting for a panel, which is a small press spotlight, because Deb Dixon from Bellbridge Books, who at this time I had never met, is one of the panelists. And I had driven 8 hours expressly to meet her. She was publishing a friend of mine, Kalena Price, and Kalena spoke very highly of her and said that she would be someone good for me to work with if I wanted to work with a traditional publisher. So I was like, okay, I'll drive to Kentucky. And talked to the guy who was running the writing programming and said, hey, put me on programming. I was like, all right. It's like, oh, that was easy. So I'm sitting there and we're starting to melt. And I get up and walk to the back of the room and I look at the thermostat. And you know how usually in hotels, in the conference rooms and stuff, the thermostat is either secured in some way or it's like a crazy computer keypad that you need a hacker to get into if you don't have the code. Yeah, no, this looked like the one in your grandma's living room. So I just looked at it for a second and said, I know how this sumbitch works. And I flipped it on. And I go back and I sit down. And the lady looks over and she says, did you just do what I think you just did? And I said, well, if you think I turned that arrow on, you damn skippy, I did. She said, I like you. I said, thanks. I'm a likable fella. I said, I'm John. She said, I'm Deb Dixon with Bellbridge Books. That's great. I just drove 8 hours to kiss your ass. How am I doing so far? Book 8 in that series, Lady in Black, releases June 9th from Bellbridge Books. But yeah, it was so hot.
So
Wow.
God, it was, and then their solution was because they couldn't get the air, because we were in that middle part, which was before they put a roof on it, was outside. So all this hot air from the rooms are blowing in on us. So
All the hot
their
air from the
solution,
authors was going straight up in there too.
their solution was to bring in these giant fans, which, you know, proceeded to just not only blow our books around, but blow the hot air around. It was quite miserable.
Yeah, it was terrible. There was one point where I went back to my room to relax because I didn't have a table because I didn't have any books. I almost didn't leave my room because the doorknob was so hot. I was like, oh my God, is there a fire? Oh, no, wait, it's just that hot. I had to use my shirt tail to open the door to my room.
Holy
I went out during the day and sat in my car with the air conditioner on. Just to cool.
You could have just gone out and sat on the parking lot
Yeah.
and been cooler.
Ugh.
But that's how Bobby and I became friends.
You know, it's a bonding experience. I mean, oh my God.
Suffering
Yes.
always is.
Yeah.
Always is. So continuing on the topic of authors getting indie publisher attention, what are some things they can do with their manuscripts to make this brilliant? Yeah. Be brilliant. But beyond that, I mean, what are some things I know y'all taught before about this?
Yeah, well, I think if with any publisher, no matter regardless of the size, you need to turn in a professional looking, you know, manuscript. You kind of need to know how books work, you know, because not only do publishers look at things like how you've written it and all this, if you make production easier on them, that they don't have to go in like the big one, they put the period after a sentence and then go down to the next one. Someone's got to go in there and take all of those extra spaces out. Otherwise it throws off formatting. So it's a long, tedious, pain in the butt job. If you if they go, hey, I like this writer, we don't have to fix their, you know, that helps. So turning in a professional, you know, looking manuscript that's not in like some Comic Sans font size 15, you know, turn it in right. You turn in something professional looking. That right there puts you, you know, pretty high up
above 80% of the
yeah.
field. You're in the top 20% if you can follow the submission guidelines.
Yeah. Yeah, because there's a lot of people that won't. There's a lot of people that, as we said earlier, I'm going to be the one that changes their mind about this. You're not, you know, that happens. It happens all the time. We've both seen numerous times where someone's got this one story and they'll submit it to every anthology there is to submit it to, whether it fits the guidelines or not, because someone's going to know how brilliant this is and publish it.
Yeah,
but you've written this children's book that you're sending to, you know, non-children's bookstore, you know, that kind of thing.
Splatter.
So
yeah, and also understand the genre. Read in the genre. There's this concept among new writers and newish writers that I don't want to read in the genre I'm working in because I don't want ideas to pollute me. Y'all ain't got anything original anyway. None of us do. We didn't make any of this crap up. Read what is selling. Do not come to me thinking you're the next Robert Jordan and give me your 200,000 word epic, because I'm not going to touch it. I did a video on my YouTube channel about reader equity. As an unpublished writer, you don't have any.
That's right.
Robert Jordan had a lot of it by the time he ended his portion of the Wheel of Time series. Brandon Sanderson has a great deal of reader equity. He has published successfully very good books. You have not. So you have to be good from the jump, and you have to be better than the people who got published 10 years ago, because you're not competing with their work 10 years ago. You're competing with their work 10 years on in their career.
And you have to be you have to realize that writing is such a small part of being a writer. You know, you've still got to, whether you're with a publisher or doing it yourself, you still have to promote your work. You're promoting yourself. You're building brands. I mean, if you've got one series, that's a brand. You as the author is a brand. You as a publisher is a brand. You spend a lot of time doing stuff like that. You spend a lot of time getting the word out, doing conventions. I mean, we all do a lot of conventions.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I know the three of us are at conventions, with the exception of last year, we're at conventions pretty regularly. We're doing
I do
events.
20 to
and-
30 a year in
Yeah.
a normal year.
Yeah, and I'm just shy of that. You know, I'm probably in the 15 to 20. But then there's all those other things that you spend your time doing. I can be at my desk 8 to 10 hours a day, and I've worked 8 to 10 hours. Maybe only 3 of that or 4 of that was writing.
I haven't written a word yet today, and it's almost 8 o'clock. I got up at 7:30.
Mhm.
There was also a nap involved, but
Yeah.
regardless, I had a meeting that I drove half an hour each way to get to. I'm doing this promo. When I'm done here, I'm going to go record another podcast that, while it is a lot of fun to do, it's still promotional. It's the point of Authors and Dragons is not just for us to have fun playing D&D. It's for us to have fun playing D&D and leech fans off of each other and hopefully build everybody's fan base at the same time. Go to conventions. Go meet people. Darren Kennedy's one of the people in the chat right now, and I actually used Darren and his friend Matthew Saunders as examples that I hold up of people that, when I started in this business, were sitting out in the audience at every writing panel. And now Darren's 6th book with us will be coming out late this year. He and his friend Matthew has 5 or 6 books out, 6 or 7 books out as well. They studied the industry, and they didn't read blogs. They didn't read websites. They went and talked to humans. So
you can always kind of tell at a convention too, the people that follow you back to your table from a panel with follow-up questions, you know, they're you know, those are generally the ones you watch out for, because you know they're onto something.
Yeah, they really are.
And you know, like most indie creators, most of the stuff that I know, most of the stuff I'm saying here tonight, I either learned it all on my own from either watching people or from screwing up something so badly that I learned a lesson from it. Because, man, screwing up is the best teacher in the world. And
you ain't lying.
You know, but I also think too, and not just the indie community, I'd say the creative community, there's a lot of people there who will help you if you ask. They will give you advice if you ask.
Yes.
But you've got to take the step and go, hey, can I ask you a question? And I've discovered, I mean, this is a wonderful community where if I ever get stuck on something, I've got a handful of people I can immediately contact and go, talk me off this ledge or help me through this problem.
Yeah.
And that's one of the beauties of this thing, because we're not competition.
Yeah, that's a misconception that a lot of people have, is that writers are competition, or even other small presses are competition. No, they're not. Every single person that buys a book, particularly someone who buys a book in genre fiction, they're doing good for me. And they're doing good for Bobby. And they're doing good. Hi, Rachel. They're doing good for Rachel with Crone Girls Press. Give a shout out to them. They're a newish horror female centric publisher. They're fantastic. Go check out their stuff, especially you, Jess.
Oh yeah, I've been.
But
our friends.
They think that it's competitive, and it's not, because if they like my stuff, well, an avid reader can read 2 or 3 books in a week. We are one of the busiest small presses in the nation, and I can't keep up with that pace. We literally publish a book every week, and I can't keep up with that pace.
And if you sell a book it does not hurt anybody else's
It's
sales.
not pie.
Right.
They're not going to run out.
Plus it is, it's like too, if someone has gone through, say, all of John's library, I mean, not even talking Falstaff, just John. I've read Bubba, I've read The Black Knight, I've read Quincy Harker. Recommend something. John can recommend other publishers. I've seen him do it.
Yeah.
If you like this, you will like this.
Mm-hmm.
And so there is nothing, the more books I sell doesn't hurt John.
No.
And vice versa. And actually a lot of indie creators and indie publishers I see constantly going, hey, we don't have anything new out this week, but hey, check out our buddies over here at this publisher. They just put out this book.
It also makes you look good.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't give a shout out to Rachel's Press just because I think they're great. I also did it because now I look good. I look like a nice guy. I'm not, but I look like it. I am kind.
I'm not a nice guy. I just play one on TV.
I don't even do that.
Actually, now that I think about it, you mentioned the acting stuff at the beginning. Actually, most of the stuff I get hired for is to play assholes, which I don't think I am.
Glad they don't make you stretch.
Not.
Yeah.
That's strange. They should be hiring John, but
I'm
they won't pay me enough to commute 4 hours.
They hire John for I'm immediately flashing back to his commercial where they're in the sauna.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, that's the kind of stuff John gets hired for.
They hire me when they need somebody who looks like they were on Sons of Anarchy, but went to Seed.
Yeah. I mean, I tell folks my publisher looks like a biker dude, and and I kind of appreciated that about him, and that's why I started talking to him. So
That's
and
why
he
I
was
started dyeing my hair funny colors so I would be less scary at conventions.
Less scary, yeah.
Now I just bring Melissa or Teresa to conventions and let them be not scary, and I just sit in the back and glower at people. So if they're brave enough to talk to me, then all right, you passed test 1.
I've watched this happen.
But I'm sure we've got questions because
we do have questions. So we're gonna, and quite a few. I'm like kind of happy about that. If you guys still have questions, you can still put it in the Q&A box, and we'll get to these.
And if you have anything that we don't answer, you can go on Facebook when we're done and join my Facebook group, John G. Hartness Books. Bobby's also a member of my group, and you can ask us there. You could also join Bobby's group.
Yep. I have author Bobby Nash.
But I'm only going to do so much pimping for Bobby. He's got to carry his own load.
Right. And they're both very entertaining, by the way. So it's worth going and taking a look at this. So
I swear a lot more in my group.
Yeah. And if you ever see us at a con panels, we have a blast. And yes, but there is more swearing.
Also, I encourage folks to come by. If you're at a con, do bar con with us. Come to the bar with us, because
you don't have to drink.
Things get real.
That's another big misconception, and it's a thing that's going around on Twitter right now. A lot of business takes place in a bar.
Absolutely.
You don't have to drink alcohol.
Right? They sell sodas.
Practically everyone I have never seen anyone actually care what's in your glass unless they want to buy you a refill. I once spent 12 hours in the Weston Lobby bar at Dragon Con because I didn't have a panel until 10 o'clock at night. I had 2 drinks the whole time, but I always had a glass in my hand because I drink a lot of Pepsi. But you absolutely don't have to be a drinker to talk to people. And if you have a problem being around alcohol, then yes, absolutely don't go. I don't want to pressure anybody to do that. But if you're not going because you don't like the taste of alcohol, well, get a soda.
Exactly.
Have a ginger ale. Drink a water.
Right.
Because there is a lot.
Bobby doesn't drink, but Bobby will go to the bar.
Yeah, we've hung out not quite 12 hours, but we've hung out for hours at the Westin at Dragon Con, because that's kind of become the author hangout when you don't have panels.
You're welcome.
That
was something me and Delilah Dawson really pushed for about 5 or 6 years ago, and I was really happy to see it catch on.
Oh, absolutely. But it's great. But it's still part of the con, but it's a part where it's not just people who how to say this. It could be any writers of any level.
Yes.
You know,
Great.
we have people that come hang out in the bar that are New York Times best-selling authors, hanging out with people who are still writing their first book.
Jonathan
it-
Mayberry will sit there and give of his time to anyone and everyone who's there, because Jonathan believes in helping anybody of any level of publication.
Mhm.
But let's hit a couple of questions, because
All right, let's
otherwise
do
we're
some
never
Yeah.
going to.
questions, 'cause we could talk about this all night. Okay, so we have a question. I'm going to translate this just a little. What is the biggest headache about being an indie publisher?
That's a good one. Well, I don't know. I mean, it's a job like any job, and there's going to be days where, like any job, as much as I love what I do, I would rather do anything else. I'm assuming, does that happen?
The Ingram website is high on my list.
I do see you fuss about that quite a bit.
They revamped their website last year and it's horrible. The graphic user interface is terrible. It glitches all the time, no matter what browser I'm using, except it may work fine in Edge, but I'm not going to download Microsoft Edge onto my Mac. Yeah. And also ISBNs. I hate ISBNs. I hate that we pay for them. It's such a racket. Other countries don't pay for them.
Yeah, that is and it's not like they're cheap. I mean, it's not like it's something, oh, I'm going to shell out $5 or $10. No, you're dropping money.
Yeah, I bought 1,000 for $1,500.
Yeah.
Wow.
$1,500 is a big chunk of change to an indie press.
Yes.
That was not a happy day.
Ouch.
But I don't have any big headaches. There are always little annoyances that come up. I mean, the annoyance when I got home from my meeting was I bought a new bookcase for a convention. So I had a 40-pound bookcase to drag downstairs to my office. Meh. Yeah, no, I'm pretty sure Tom Doherty isn't doing that. But
You
don't have interns in your office?
we have our first intern starting this summer. I can't wait. I'm not going to say a name until she actually shows up. She's not going to come here. No, it's going to be virtual. I wouldn't let anybody come to my house and try to work. Yeah, I mean, just like any other small business, money, promotion.
Money, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so JD Estrada, hey JD, is asked the question: is it common to pass on the book or pass the books on to other small presses? I guess that's what it means.
I've done it quite a few times.
Yeah.
If a book's not ready, and I'm not going to work with it. But Jason Graves from Prospective Press, I sent him a book because I thought the book was good. It was just plot-wise and theme-wise too close to what I write. So it was too close to a Harker book to fit in our line, because that's my spot. If we get a great crime novel that comes in, I'll probably send it to Bobby because he's got a better shot of producing it before 2024 than I do. So, I mean, I do it, and I've had it happen. I had a trilogy get sent to me from another press a few months ago.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, that kind of goes back to that. That kind of goes back to that. We're not competing with one another.
Right.
It's, yeah, because again, because if someone sends something in that's a perfectly good book, it's just not what we do.
Yeah.
You can suggest something else for them or make introductions.
All right, so we have an anonymous question. What are some of the best resources for new authors to learn how to better hone their craft?
Going to the Broadleaf Writers Conference.
Yes.
Well, of course.
Well,
but
writers conferences in general, there's some really good ones out there. I've learned some excellent information.
There's a book called Goal, Motivation, and Conflict. It's by Deb Dixon, my publisher. It's fantastic. There's a book called Save the Cat, which is a screenplay book, but it's writing commercial fiction.
Right,
There's
there is
also
a
Save the
novel.
Cat Writes a Novel,
Yeah,
which I've heard is really good as well.
it is.
I
It
read
is.
the original, so I
Yeah.
didn't read the sequel.
On the production side, one of the things I found very helpful when I first started putting my own ebooks together, Smashwords has a free downloadable how to produce a Smashwords ebook,
Hmm.
which is very good information in it about production and how to, make the pages so they'll line up right and all that stuff. It was very good. It was like a free download.
It's not very good for writing advice,
no.
but when it comes to publishing advice, my YouTube channel is pretty good. The
Mhm.
Falstaff Books YouTube channel. I don't talk craft on there, but I talk industry quite a bit. There
So
is a
you have a
NSFW
yeah,
warning.
you have a really good one though on like the number of things you're doing to screw up.
Oh yeah, 10 Things I Hate About Your Book.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
That was
Yeah,
great.
that's a
You know.
series that I did, and yeah, that one's pretty good. Here's the thing. We're working with commercial fiction. Our job is not to write the next To Kill a Mockingbird. Our job is to write a book that people will purchase and enjoy. If it then becomes the next To Kill a Mockingbird, all the better. I have absolutely published books that I will stack up against any piece of literature produced in the last decade. But we started with writing commercial fiction. And there are things you do in commercial fiction that you didn't learn in English class. Oh, here's a
Mhm.
pro tip for you. If you have an MFA in creative writing, don't put that in your cover letter.
It's good advice, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I mentioned mine to you until like maybe 2 years in. And then you're like, yeah, so.
Yeah. I mean, by that point, you had a pretty good grasp on what you didn't know.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But
That was
yeah,
a-
if you have an MFA in creative writing, and you want to work with a genre fiction publisher, don't put it in your cover letter.
Right. All right. So we have another question. How important is an editor to your book?
Very.
They're the second most important part of creating a book.
That's your partner.
I mean, the author is the most important because there's no product without them. And by the way, there's not just one editor on a book. Jess, have you gotten copy edits back yet?
I haven't gotten copy edits
Okay.
back yet.
For example, I'm Jess's editor I'm her lead editor on Children of Menlo Park. She will not have any more edit notes from me. The book has now gone to copy edits, where someone who has a clue where the commas go is going to start looking at things. And they're going to look at grammar and consistency and things of that nature. Whereas I was working on story and structure and character and some word choice stuff.
Yeah.
And then once it goes through copy edits, then it's going to go to yet a third person, because as many different eyes as can go on to a product, the better. And that person will do proofreading, which will be yet another grammar and spelling and typo check. So yeah, it's your editor, nobody but the author is more important.
Yeah. Especially for newbie writers, because I remember the first time I worked with an editor, it's tough.
Yeah,
we like to
it
think
is.
that everything we write is gold. And I would still like to think that, but I know it's not true. You have the hard thing to learn, because like I said, it's tough. It feels like it's a stab to your heart every time they come with edits. But your editor is your partner. They want the same thing you do, for this to be the best book it can be, and to be able to sell and find readers who will hopefully come back and read more stuff. We all have the same goal.
So on the hierarchy of all the people who have ever written in the English language, William Shakespeare ranks at or near the top, right?
Mm-hmm.
Charles Dickens is pretty high up there, right? There were hacks. They were writing for $1.
Absolutely.
Their words were not precious. Your words are not precious. Your characters are not precious. If they are slowing the book down, cut it out.
This is also a very important thing too, if you want to work for publishers. Publishers have guidelines of what they will and will not do story-wise.
Yes.
You know, some publishers want their stuff to be all ages. So if you send them a manuscript full of F-bombs, it's probably not going to go, or it's going to have to be heavily edited. This publisher over here is more adult. So if you don't want to send them your children's book, that kind of thing, that's where the research that we talked about earlier comes in.
Yeah.
Know the publisher you're dealing with. And some publishers have, depending on the genre, are flexible, or they don't care, But I mean, any submissions guidelines you read for any publisher is going to say, here's what we don't want.
Right.
Or here's what we don't do. So
Alright.
that's the kind of stuff to think about too when you go into work with editors. It may not be that your story's bad, or obviously your story's not bad. It got to this point. You've
And
obviously,
as a new writer, and as maybe you decide to self-publish, that's great. Go for it. It is critical that that none of your editors be anyone that lives with you or shares a significant portion of their DNA with you, or ever has or will again exchange fluids with you in any way. Because they will have a very different motivation, because they give a shit how you feel.
they don't want to hurt your feelings.
I don't care how you feel.
He really does.
Both of these two have gotten edits from me. They know. I mean, I think the first story Bobby ever sent me, I sent back and said, "Yeah, give me something else."
I believe,
Or was it
yes,
the
I believe
second?
that was the second one. It's the second
Yeah.
one for the second big bad. Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember that. Yep.
And I knew that Bobby wasn't going to be all precious about his words, because, I mean, really, we were writing for $50 a story.
Yeah, it was like, okay, when do you need it? Shit, gotta go.
Yeah. But an editor that doesn't care about your feelings is worth more than one who loves you. I'm not saying that your editor should be rude, and this idea of breaking a writer down to build them up, that's all BS. But I don't need to sugarcoat anything to my writers, and I do adore some of my writers. Some of my best friends are people that I publish. But they get the same treatment that everybody else gets.
And very important to remember, the editing process is another one of those things. I remember I talked about earlier, if you turn in a manuscript that's easier, they like you better. They will invite you back more. If they know, if you're turning in edits on one of my projects and the editor's like, oh God, I'm getting ready for the bitching. That you've already put oh God, I got to deal with this person in their head.
Yeah. Bobby and I can work together forever because we know we can work together.
Yeah.
Right.
And you have to, one of the best, and I wish I remember who told me this, but one of the best pieces of advice I got when it comes to getting edits, and it was an editor, I just don't remember which one, said, was talking about how they had this one person that argued every edit note. Even like, you misspelled this word, and they argued it. And he says, as an author working with editors, you need to pick which hill you want to die on in this process.
Yeah.
Now, there are things that sometimes you write, yes, it could be changed, but you write it for a stylistic reason. And you might go, I really would like to keep this one thing. If I didn't argue everything else and I go, this one thing here, can we talk about this? And you talk to your editor and explain why you want to keep it. Most of the time they'll go, yeah, okay, that's fine. That works.
Case in point, last year I did an anthology for Zombies Need Brains. I wrote a story, and it was an ambitious story for me stylistically, because it hopped time quite a bit, and it did some POV shifting, which is not something I typically do, but I was working on a short story so I could take more risks. It came back with edits, and they were like, okay, we need to cut this scene and this scene and this scene that jump time because it's screwing up the flow. And I looked at it, I was like, okay, I can cut this scene and this scene, but I really need this one, because otherwise half the story goes without a jump, and then it's going to be jarring to jump again. And the editor's like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. but their other cuts made perfect sense. That anthology is called My Battery is Low and It is Getting Dark, and it is available from the link in the chat.
Yes.
He is on the ball with these too.
Yeah.
He is killing it tonight.
We told Benji ahead of time to keep a bunch of browser tabs open, and he is hopping.
He is killing it. So we have another question from an audience member that wants to start their own press.
God, don't.
see that wall? If you bang your head into that wall repeatedly for a little while, if you can do that and still go, you go ahead. Because that's a great indicator of what it's like to run a press. There is a lot of banging your head against the wall, and there's a lot of juggling, and that's just writing in general.
But they actually had a real question, probably.
But I mean,
yeah, they wanted to know some main steps about getting started as an indie publisher.
Well, like anything else, I would say have a plan. What do you want to do? I mean, obviously you want to start. You don't want to say, I'm going to put out 50 books a year to start, because that way lies madness. But pick how you want to start. Do you want to just start out publishing yourself, which is what a lot of us do, and then slowly but surely you work in other people? Do you want, so come up with that plan, figure out what you want to do, what size books you want to do. Size is important. Are you going to do just ebooks? Are you going to do?
Don't start with this.
No, start
this
with
is
something
ridiculous.
small. Yeah, but go in with a plan. Make your plan, because publishing a book, there's multiple ways to get that book in front of people. Not only are there ebooks and paperbacks, are you going to do hardcovers? Are you going to do audio? Where are you going to do them? Who are you going to get to them? You're going to read them yourself? You're going to hire somebody? Can you do covers? Well, if you can't do covers, do you have a cover artist? Can you do production? If you can't do production, do you have someone? These are all very important questions to kind of think about before you start. Otherwise, you find yourself doing like what I did and screwing up halfway through and going, I need help.
Build a network.
Yes.
Build a network of people that you can call on, a network of people that when you find yourself in the weeds and, oh my God, I screwed this up, what am I going to do? Well, you can send an email or make a phone call or send a text. Do people actually make phone calls anymore? You can contact someone and they can bail you out. You need that. I use Deb for that. When I get lost, I call Deb. I've used Alan Gilbreth for that. I've used all my friends for different chunks of advice over time. Bobby and I have had long talks about putting books together and things like that. Know what all the steps really are before you start trying to work with someone else's words.
Yeah.
It's one thing to screw up your book. It's a lot. It feels bad. It feels a lot worse when it's something somebody else has worked for a long time on, and you're going to screw up. I screw up at least a couple of times every day. And because I do have staff, I have somebody who can tell me about it. But be sincere. Be honest. Here's why honesty is the best policy in business. You have to remember your lies. You don't have to remember if you're telling the truth. It'll be the same truth tomorrow.
And also, and when it comes to publishing books, whether they're yours or someone else's, it's not just putting a book together and putting it on sale. Your process does not stop there.
Yeah.
That's actually, and if you ask a lot of people, that's when the real work starts, because you've written a book, you've put the book out, it's out there. Now what? You still got to lead people to it. I mean, especially with Amazon being the monster that it is, you are a tiny drop in that huge ocean. You've got to make people find you. You can't just sit back and wait for people to find you. There's got to be ways you can do it. That's why if you ever see any of us doing promotion, we're not just putting it on Facebook. We're doing conventions. We're doing stuff like this. We're doing stuff that's not social media only. We do a lot of events just to get out and get stuff in front of people. And that's all great. It's all part of the business. But while you're doing it, you're not writing.
Yeah.
So that's where the juggling comes in.
Mhm.
You
Also
have to-
understand that as an independent publisher, you're not going to make much money. If any.
No.
Most books don't make money. I make my living off my book sales. Falstaff Books supports itself, but it ain't making me rich.
Mm-mm.
I mean, you can tell how long it's been since I dyed my hair.
Yeah. Well, it's also a bit of a feast or famine thing too.
Yes.
You can go months with no sales, and then all of a sudden you have the best month ever in sales. So I mean, there's a lot that could, we're
Yeah.
at the whim of, the world. Like certainly a pandemic can cause people to go, shit, I don't have money to buy books, and they postpone buying books for a while. So I mean, you've got
Or suddenly people aren't making that 45-minute commute every day, and they don't listen to audiobooks in the car every day.
Right. We've
So
got,
guess we got time for one more.
I think we've got time for one more. And this is a very, very important question. What beverage is more essential to push through? Booze, coffee, or Mountain Dew? Right.
I mean, I might have been drinking Pepsi this whole time, but honestly, that's because the bottles of Pepsi are already in the fridge, and the Mountain Dew I have to pour over ice, so it's more maintenance and it jingles in the microphone. But yeah, no, it's 100% Mountain Dew.
Oh my gosh.
it's either Mountain Dew for me or water. I do bounce back and forth between the two.
Benji is my new hero.
Oh my gosh.
Benji's
Yes.
the best. He has totally bought into the vibe of this panel.
I actually reached out to Mountain Dew a few years ago about sponsorship,
What
and
they
they
say?
wouldn't. They wouldn't. They said no, because I got to noticing every panel picture of me from a con right in front of them.
Product
And
placement, man.
I said, okay, so now I put it in the floor. I'm not gonna do it for free.
That's right.
Well, we need to wrap this up because we've got like 1 minute. So that means I have to wrap everything up. And I really hate to because I'm having just a glorious time. And I know you guys could keep talking.
Yeah.
We want to thank both of you for being here and doing this for us. It has been excellent.
Well, I'm always happy to talk with my friends, and I'm always happy to BS about publishing. So thank you all for hanging out.
What he
Again,
said.
come find us if you have other questions that we didn't get to. Bobby and I are easy to find.
Mhm.
We're hard to miss.
We're hard to miss.
They are hard to miss. It was excellent as always. Y'all check them out on Facebook and on the links that we've posted. The video it's on live on Facebook now. We will be putting this video once it's edited by our glorious and wonderful leader, Zach Steele, on YouTube, probably in the next day or so. So you can relive the joy of this entire discussion once again. We want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. And of course, we'll have another one of these next Thursday night. So be checking us out on our Facebook page, Broadleaf Writers. And we'll see you guys again soon. Thanks for coming out.